Oh. Hello everybody, this is Danny from Deep South Homestead. We're back here again with Julie from Dirtpatcheaven in our segment or series or whatever you want to call it on the different seasons of the year in North versus South. We're into the fall season now because we're going to be taking that initiative on our channel, and we're going to be discussing some of the differences between where Julie lives and where we live at and how much different it is with the climates. Well, what are some of the different things that we do on our homesteads? What are some of the different things that we're able to actually grow? What do we do as a homesteader? If you're a beginning homesteader, pay attention to this particular one because this could be the one that changes it all.
Now that we really understand each other,
yeah.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Except I don't think fall is ever that for us.
Fall for us is the time of the year that we just drool for.
Yeah. I love fall. I think we have that in common, that fall is just, it's every homesteader's, we did it.
Well, we're here, we're like, God, please bring cool air.
Yeah. It's just time for us. It means work is almost finished. A lot of the real back-breaking work is kind of about to start because you've got wood and butchering, but it's ending up in the wood pile, it's ending up in the freezer, and you see an end.
It's actually the beginning for us.
Is it?
Yes, because all summer we've been locked in the house because of the extreme heat, and when fall comes around, we have a whole book full of projects because it's finally cool enough to get outside again that we can actually work. And we love it because we're able to get out of the house. Julie, a typical fall for you, what does it mean to you?
Our fall starts in September. Very rarely we'll have a September that we have a lot of heat, but the year that I was pregnant with Paige, it was very, very hot in September. But generally we start to see back down into the 70s, and the nights are starting to really cool down. The leaves on the trees might have started to turn just a little bit of color. We might get some frost. And so that's the time of year when I kind of start to push the feed a little bit onto my animals because I'm getting them ready to butcher, particularly with the fowl. We have meat birds that we've raised through the year that were hatched out by our mama ducks or by our mama chickens, and those are the ones that are going to go in the freezer. And this is the time of year that I don't really push grain on them, but I do push food on them of one type or another. I give them a lot more variety to pick from. If we have a lot of fruit, we push a lot of fruit on them because it affects the flavor of the meat.
I agree, yes.
We love it when we have an on year for our crab apple because all of our ducks eat all the crab apples that fall, and then their meat is just really juicy and it has this amazing aroma when you cook it. And so fall is when, because the temperatures are cooler, if I have an animal that I'm going to be butchering that I feel like I want it to tenderize a little bit more, then when I butcher it, we'll hang it up in the smokehouse and let it sit for a little bit before I finish the plucking and that kind of thing. And so I can butcher a whole bunch of animals at one time and then go in or kill a lot of animals at one time and then go in and finish with the cleanup over a series of days because it's cool enough that the meat doesn't go bad. It just the outside just works like an open air fridge. We have big slats in between the boards in our smokehouse so that the air can come through, but cats and other animals that we get into the meat can't get through. And so it's not necessarily a slowing down time of the year, but a lot of the pressure's off because everything has now been grown. Everything is starting to die. As far as the garden, you're not really getting anything else out of the garden. Unless you have a winter garden, but in that case you're going to need to have a greenhouse that, but that's another story. So for us it's just kind of like we made it. We now at this point know what we have to harvest, what didn't make it that we don't have to harvest.
Right.
And we start to really take inventory about what our winter storage need is for firewood and anything else that needs to be stored to get ready for winter.
I noticed one of the things that you talked about that's different than what we talk about is your butchering process. You talk about being able to hang the animals in the smokehouse or wherever you hang them, and you can go out and randomly take them maybe over a 2 or 3 day period to finish the process. Here where we live at, in the South, we don't even consider butchering in the fall. it's got to be the dead of winter for us. And when I say the dead of winter, I'm talking about late December or early January.
So like this is the temperature that
Yes.
you butcher in?
Yes, this is, this is it. I mean, we might choose, if we know we're going to have a cold front coming through and they tell us it's going to drop into the 20s,
Yeah.
we'll take advantage of that morning and we'll get it done and get it done fast.
Wow.
And when you start, you got to go from beginning to end.
So all of you understand, it is late winter for you now.
Yes, it's late winter for us now.
And we're outside. We're not in the
Yeah,
house.
we're sitting out here with just a long sleeve shirt on. I mean,
Yeah.
the temperature, I have a thermometer there. I can't actually see the temperature right now.
It's in
But
the 50s about right now?
no, it can't be 50s. It has to be mid 60s.
61. 60, yeah, mid 60s.
This shows
66 right now.
almost 70. Like
So it's in the mid
65,
60s, which for us,
About 65 to 66.
which
It
is
seems
summer for
cooler
us.
because of the humidity.
Yeah,
So, I mean, that's one of the things that you have to get used to here.
yeah.
It can actually, you'll get up and you'll say, oh my gosh, it's cool enough to kill, to get out and do something. But it's actually not accurate because the humidity here will fool you.
Yeah.
You'll actually think it's colder than it is. And
Yeah.
you'll actually butcher something and we can't hang anything up because it might be 25 when I get up this morning and by 10 o'clock it's 70 degrees. Yeah. So the fall for you means a completely different thing than it does for us here at Deep South Homestead. At Deep South Homestead here, when the fall comes in, we're taking a real deep breath. Like you mentioned there, it's like, whew, man, we survived the hundreds. Now we're in the 90s. Yeah. And we've made it from the hundreds, we're in the mid 90s, possibly the low 90s,
Wow.
And we're like, okay, it's project time. It's time to start getting the books out. Let's look at what we can do because we've saved our money during the heat of the summer. And then we've accumulated material. Now that fall's here, we get out because we can actually stay out maybe till 1 or 2 o'clock during the day. And because down here, daylight comes at 5 o'clock in the morning. It gets dark about 9:30 at night.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a lot of time to do some things. And it's mainly a project time. Now we do have harvest, don't get me wrong. Things like field corn, we start getting our field corn in late September, sometimes maybe early October. Sweet potatoes are coming in late September. We're trying to get them in as much as we can because if the rain happens to start, then they sprout in the ground
Really?
and they're ruined. Peanuts. We try to get our peanuts out of the ground because if we leave our peanuts in the ground and it happens to start raining because the ground has been so dry and so hot for so long, they think it's spring. They just start sprouting and coming up.
You can grow peanuts here.
Yeah. We grow peanuts real easy here.
Wait, they're in the ground?
Wait!
Yeah. Yeah, so fall for the southern climate is a totally different reason than what y'all,
Yeah.
what you're looking at.
We're just getting ready to shovel in and hibernate.
Yeah.
That's what we're getting ready to do is hibernate.
Now we do gather our firewood. Don't get me wrong. And for what little coal we have, we do spend a lot of time gathering firewood because what we would build a fire at, you probably wouldn't.
Right.
Because here, I noticed today we came home and you was talking about how cold it was.
Well, the fire had gone out, and back home when you start a fire because you need a fire, you put a lot of wood in because you
Right.
need it to burn for a long time.
Yeah.
And I'd watched you light fires, and I it's always tricky touching another man's wood stove because they all have their own personality.
Every stove has, it doesn't matter if you change stove, they have
Yeah.
a different personality.
Yeah,
You're correct.
and
Yeah.
you don't want people touching your wood stove because you have it cleaned a certain way, you have it set up ready to go a certain way. So I felt hesitant to start it, and then I'm like, what if it goes out? And so I put as much wood into it as I would back home, and by the
Yeah.
time everybody got home, like that little fan on top of it was just running as fast as it could. Everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, it's so hot in here!" I'm like, "I'm sorry, I thought I would put enough wood in." And
But that's the thing about it. Where you're at, you probably. What's the temperature in the fall before you'd build a fire?
50s.
well, it takes us a little while to wind down. The nights, by the time the daytimes are in the 50s, the nights are freezing. And so what we wouldn't necessarily start it for in the daytime, we have to always have a low grade fire going because it gets so cold at night. And we don't want to have to
Okay.
restart the fire. We want to have coals because it has a lot of space to heat up before it starts to freeze at night. So what we'll do is we'll start the fire, we'll keep a little bit of wood in it throughout the day, but we also cook on it.
Right.
So we'll maybe have the windows open a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
so that we can cook on the wood stove during the day, and then we'll build it up, we'll stoke it up really good at night and let it burn really hot and lots of wood just before we go to bed. We'll stoke it, we'll shut everything down, and then one of us will get up in the middle of the night and put another really, really, really big log in so that it stays until morning, because it's our early morning hours that are really, really, really bitterly cold.
Now, are you saying this happens in September?
It happens.
Or October.
You will definitely have a fire going in September.
See, because our first fire was December.
Couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably the 1st of December was our first fire.
Yeah.
Now, we did build a couple of, I call it seasoning the cast iron backfires.
Yeah.
You know, just to, because we oil our stove down during the summertime here because the humidity is so high that the stove will actually rust in the house.
Yeah.
So we have to do that. And in one of my former videos here at Deep South Homestead, I showed replacing the stove door gasket on it. That was because the humidity, even though the stove is in the house, closed up, the humidity comes down the pipe still, and the cast iron will absorb that moisture, and because it does, rust formed under the gasket where the glue is at and actually push the gasket loose. So here, fall means a completely different thing than what it does for y'all. You know, we don't even consider building a fire until November at least. Sometime in November, we don't even consider it. It's just not
Yeah.
feasible. Because if we build one, it's kind of like what you experienced today. It's one of the things, I'm cold, but then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I'm dying, you know? It's just so hot that we don't even do it. We just throw a few extra blankets on the bed at night, because if we build a fire, then it just gets too hot and we have to open the doors and open the windows back up anyway.
Yeah.
You know, but the fall is a time for us to start looking toward things like maybe deer hunting. We start food plots here. We start things like that because we feel like the animals have eat our fields all year long, that it's right for us to be able to harvest them. And we do use the word harvest. We don't use the word kill a lot of times. We feel like we're harvesting our animals. Just like you harvest food out of the gardens, we harvest the wildlife on our property for eating. And it is a time that we do that. I don't know where y'all are at, if you actually do much harvesting of wild animals or...
We do. For us, it's deer or it's elk within certain regions, but it's because anything you plant has to be already finished growing by the time September gets here. So we can't do feed plots so much.
I
You
got
can set out a lick, or not generally corn, but generally it's a lick, something sweet with some salt in it. It might have corn in it, but it usually just comes in a block and you set it out. But most people don't hunt on their own property unless they're a big farmer. Usually we go off into the hills, and a lot of times you have to have a pretty hefty series of tags. But for the most part in our area, in different parts of Idaho, I guess people rely on that more. It's a lot easier to get a freezer full of meat from an elk than it is from a deer. Because a deer, you're going to get maybe 30 pounds, maybe 50 if you're really lucky.
If you're lucky, yeah.
And so you've got the money into that tag, and whatever time you take off work and your gun and your gear and everything that goes into it, and you come home with, and then a lot of people, they'll actually take their deer to a butcher.
Yes.
And have it butchered there instead of doing it themselves. So you have the cost of that.
Yes.
And so a lot for our family, it's cost effective that I just raise all of our own meat. We raise a very large variety of our own meat, but we don't bother with going hunting because it's not a sure bet.
And you brought out something that's extremely, I've noticed it everywhere I go. People invest so heavily into the hunting that by the time this meat is to the table, sure, you didn't have to grow it, but by the time it gets to the table, it's about $25 or $30 a pound.
It is.
And that's one thing here at Deep South. We invest maybe $50 into our food plots, and because of the laws and the regulations in the state of Mississippi, we don't actually have to have anything on our land to hunt on our land.
Mhm.
And so harvesting an animal for us is free,
Right.
other than the fact that we did spend a little bit of time and effort and money into the food plot, and we do our own butchering. So therefore it is an economical way for us to do things here.
And we have had points when we felt like we had a little bit more money and we paid to have somebody butcher of some of our animals. I very rarely
Yeah.
had anybody butcher our small animals, but when we had a hog and we didn't have a tractor to lift it up, to hoist it up, we really didn't have anywhere safe to hang it to keep it clean. And I butchered my own sheep and I butchered my own goats and even cows at times. But there is a point where if you don't have the experience and you don't have and you're really relying on that meat turning out well, I do think there are times that it's really worth it to have somebody butcher it. But if the reason you're hunting is to try and save money, go out and buy half a beef.
Yeah, go buy half a big. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's times here, even at Deep South Homestead, where we, this past year was one of those, for instances, we had some health issues, and we just took the hog to the butcher.
Yeah.
Because it's just not feasible at certain times for that to happen.
Yeah.
You know, and it just doesn't work out. And we're talking about, we had a several 100-pound hog. We walked away with, was it 90? Like $90.
Yeah. It's not expensive for us. I think the complete, because they come and get it for us, which I
Oh,
love.
wow.
They come and
that
get
doesn't happen here.
The animal's never under stress. They die where they were raised, happy, contented, and then they take them and they process them for us, and it costs us $120 to have it done, and they do a really good job.
That's neat.
But one of the things that I kind of wanted to talk about, because I think it's really, really important, recognize what your local resources are as a homesteader at this time. So many people get into gardening and get into animals, and they get them for their kids, for the experience, and then they decide they don't have the heart to butcher.
Yes.
Or that they really don't like squash. And so if you watch Craigslist and Facebook and listen at church
Yep.
at the Grapevine, lots of what we feed our animals are pumpkins and squash that other people have thrown away. We'll actually go out on little scavenging missions because we know that in our canal systems, people will just throw their squash from Halloween or their
The
pumpkins
yes.
from Halloween in the ditch, and we'll go out and we'll get them and bring them back and feed them to our animals. And
Not a bad idea.
and animals, all animals will eat pumpkins.
Yes.
And the goats will eat them, the chickens will eat them, the pigs will eat them. And so for us, scavenging is a really big thing because a lot of the Easter ducklings that people got for their kids are now stinky, messy, leaving poop everywhere.
Rabbits are the same way.
Yeah. The cute Easter babies are now big
Yeah.
enough that they're not cute anymore. And so you can go out and you can fill your freezer, as long as you're good at butchering,
Right.
you can fill your freezer with some, so this is one thing that I do. I do bring them home and feed them a clean diet for about a month before I butcher them.
Right.
Because a lot of times they'll be in a mud pit. The ducks will be in a mud
Oh,
pit.
I agree. People, yeah, you're exactly right. They get the animals, they don't really know how to take care of
Yeah.
them, and then it becomes a burden. And they're like, "Oh my God, we've got this animal out here, and
Yeah.
we just want to get rid of it," and they'll just. It's
They'll
more. It's
neglect
more
it.
of an abandonment than
Yeah.
it is anything else. Which is not fair to the animal, or to the kid, or anybody else.
And I just wanted to jump in and say, do not disclose to these people that you are going to butcher them and put them in your freezer, because they will be just as horrified as if they were.
Yeah,
going to-
sometimes that's caution.
Yeah.
And it is hard because sometimes they'll be like, so what are you going to do with them? And I'll tell them, a lot of times I'll actually get them to pick breeding stock out of. If
Oh
they're
yeah.
nice animals,
Yeah,
I'll
if they're
give
a
them
nice
that.
animal. Yes.
And I'll just observe them for 4 weeks,
Yeah.
and I'll feed them and say, do they turn the corner? Especially with ducks, I'll make sure they have really, really clean water to clean their gut,
Yes.
to get their feathers clean. If they have any problems with lice, having enough water, they'll clean their lice out by themselves. And I'll watch them, and sometimes there'll be some really nice animals in there that I'll pick for egg production or to pick to be a breeder. And a lot of times they will ask and they'll say, so what are you going to do with them?
I usually tell them I'm taking them to a nice farm.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give them the best life they can have.
Yeah, which is a smart way to say it. Because
Yeah.
you don't want to lie to people.
No.
But we have had some and we have had some times in the fall when we took animals from people fully intending to always keep them. We had them around for a little bit, and we realized these animals are making our lives harder than easier. They shouldn't be here on our farm, and they shouldn't really be on anybody's farm. They're not good animals.
Right.
Or they're old and they're suffering, these kind of things. And those were times where I felt really bad because I had told her we were going to keep them, and then I got to a point where I'm like, I can't give these to somebody else in good faith, and
Yeah.
I can't keep them myself. And then I would feel sorry. I'd say a little prayer in my heart, Lord, I'm really sorry that I can't keep these animals, but I need to butcher them. I don't know how to get around this honestly, but I need to butcher them. And then it's kind of according to your own conscience how you deal with that,
Yeah.
because I don't think there's any really simple answer.
That, and not only that, some just have a bad personality.
Yeah, some of them do. They do.
If you get an animal with a bad personality, he can ruin all the other animals.
Yeah.
Not on top of that, he can destroy your place. I mean, you get a pig that's got a bad personality, he can ruin your fences. Cows can ruin your fences. Goats can ruin your fences. Sheep the same way. You get a bad rabbit that's got a bad personality.
Mm-hmm.
Rabbits got claws just like a house cat. I mean, they can destroy you. So you don't want those traits going back into your bloodline.
Right.
So we're very cautious here at Deep South about the animals that when we bring them in, it's always about personality.
Yeah.
Because if we can't lay our hands on them, we can't work with them, then we really don't need them.
For us, forage is a big deal in the fall. I can find, even if I don't find free food, I can find very cheap food.
Oh, you can get asparagus where you're at in the fall. Probably wild.
Only in the spring.
Really?
Only in the spring.
I would have betted my life that you could have harvested it in the fall.
No, it's the one thing that we have that you can eat early in April, not March, but in about April, the asparagus will start to come up.
See, Wanda was eating our asparagus, what,
A month ago.
a month ago. She was walking around breaking it off, eating it.
Wow.
And I kept telling her, no, don't break it off, because that's where your nutrition goes back into
Yeah,
your crowns,
right.
for the following
You
spring.
only
But,
harvest once.
we started our harvest. Our harvest lasts, what, about 6 weeks?
Maybe.
That's a long
Yeah.
season.
Yeah, we get about a 6-week harvest after the second
Yeah.
year now.
Yeah.
So that does real good. But the fall for us, we can still do a lot of harvesting.
Yeah.
But now foraging, when you're talking about foraging, what do you
Pumpkins.
call?
Pumpkins and potatoes. So we start to harvest our potatoes in September, and it can go into October. And we'll go out and we'll harvest about 9 50-pound boxes of potatoes to put in the cellar. And in our area, at least, you can glean. You can go in after the farmers, and they'll let you glean for free.
See, I was noticing that on one of the other YouTube channels. Melanie
Yeah,
was
Melanie.
talking about how they was going to the fields gleaning the potatoes, and here, there's no such thing.
Yeah. After the farmer has been through the field, there's a lot of potatoes left over.
Wow.
So you go out and you'll glean them, and they haven't been sprayed with sprout nip yet, because sprout nip will make the potato rot rather
Yeah.
than sprout. So we'll go and we can go and pick all of our potatoes on one day, and we'll go put them into cold storage. And it's also the same time of year. We need to almost wait till November to do apples, because they need that cold to hit them so that they have good juices and they have good flavor. So we'll go out and we'll harvest boxes and boxes of apples and put them in storage, and boxes of pears, put them in storage, and they'll stay good through the months until almost May. And if we have a
Gosh.
bad one, we'll pull it out for the pigs, but we sort through it through the winter. But then pumpkins are a really big forage that we'll go out and we'll get a big old trailer full of pumpkins out of the field for $60 for a big flatbed type thing of pumpkins, and then we'll put it next to the pigs, and we'll bury them in straw and put a tarp over them, and then we can pull them out. And as long as it stays frozen, they'll stay intact and they won't rot or anything. And then that's where our pumpkins will grow the next year, because any that we miss,
Right.
we'll have vines that come up. And that's also the time of year when we have to get hay. If we haven't had, usually we'll buy hay in the summer. If we weren't able to find hay in the summer, we have to have it by September, because we won't have any grass anymore after September.
Okay. Now we do hay here.
Mhm.
That's one thing we do try to get hay here. Because we don't use a lot of hay now, like we talked about in our previous video in the wintertime. We don't use a lot of hay simply because we can grow a lot of green grass in the winter times here. And fall is a very important time for us to be able to get that grass in. Because if you don't get it in September and October, then you might as well forget it until spring of the next year. Because the ground, the seeds won't germinate. The ground gets cold, the seeds just will not germinate.
And our foraging is in spring.
Our foraging is not in the fall. Our foraging begins in the spring. When the spring comes,
Really?
we're like wild animals in the woods. I mean, we're out here because we'll have as high as 6 and 7 different varieties of berries going at one time.
Really?
Yeah, because we have dewberries, blackberries, blueberries, huckleberries, raspberries.
That's awesome.
We have both tame blackberries, wild
And
blackberries.
some of those we grow in the yard, and
That's
some we
awesome.
get in the woods.
Yeah, some we get out of the woods, some we grow in the yard.
Wow.
It's one of those things that springtime's a big deal for us.
Yeah.
Now we do forage for.
What do we forage for in the fall mainly?
I guess if anything, it would be
We do.
the persimmons.
The persimmons, yes, we do the persimmons in the fall. I forgot about
and
that.
the chinkapins. But we don't
Chinkapins.
get very many of the chinkapins. The animals get them.
But now, when you was talking about apples in the fall, our apples come in late August, early September.
Gosh, but they're done by then.
Are they storage apples or summer apples?
Summer apples. We can't do storage apples here. We don't have a cold enough winter.
Yeah,
We don't
do
even
storage apples,
do
can't
we
summer
don't even
apples.
do summer apples. We have summer apples, but we only use them for dehydrating because they don't stay good and
No,
the
they won't.
flavor is bad and mushy
Yeah.
so quickly. So we just use them for dehydrating.
Yeah, we have to pick ours off the tree, bring them in, peel and can them.
Yeah, you can't. So guys, there's a difference.
There
Remember,
is a difference. Variety
matters.
Yes, it matters. Yes. And most people don't know that there is a summer apple and a storage apple.
And the storage apple need chill. They need chill hours.
Yes. And for those of you down south here at Deep South, storage apples do not grow here.
Yeah.
You know, I just might as well tell it. And I'm going to be honest with you, anything below, let's say, zone 8 or lower, let me just say zone 8 and 9. Where I'm at in the Deep South right here, there's only 2 varieties of apples we can grow. One of them is an Anna apple, and the other one is an Ain Shamir. Both of them are from Israel, and that's the only 2 you can grow.
And we have so many
Yeah.
varieties. Apples love
That's-
cold weather.
That's what, I guess, I have a lot of quirks about being in the South, because there's some things that I just love. I love growing
We can grow
apples.
1 or 2 varieties of peaches, but and I do know people, master craftsmen in our area that can grow peaches.
Yeah.
But it is not ever a sure thing.
It's
Ever.
just never a sure thing here.
Yeah.
Never.
It's just
Because you can ask Wanda, was it the first year you was here with us? We had bushels of peaches. The next year, we just had we had some, but this year, nothing hardly.
Yeah.
Now last year we had bushels of apples. This year we had what, 12?
So if you homestead and if you garden, just
Yeah.
know that having a lot of variety and planting a lot of things and a lot of in different places to see which one, it is part of homesteading. The experiment is part of the homesteading.
Yeah.
But it's not something you want to rely on, which is why it's important to have varieties here and varieties here and try something different here, because when the apples don't turn out well, maybe the peaches turn out great, and when the strawberries don't turn out well, maybe the raspberries do really well, you know?
That's one thing at Deep South Homestead we have a variety of everything. We harvest 12 months out of the year here. You know, we have oranges that we eat, and harvest. We have muscadines. Now we cannot grow a grape here.
Really?
Yeah, because we have so many wild muscadines that if we
Very
plant a
diseases.
grape, the muscadine will cross-pollinate with the grape, and the grape becomes a muscadine. So I mean, that's one of the things here that's
Did not
kind
know
of, yeah, it's kind of, we can't grow the seedless grapes or anything here.
So you saying that you can grow 12 months out of the year. For us, much of the produce that in the north you can grow well is, for us, it would be meat. So even though I'm not growing any produce in the winter, winter's the time when I have a tendency to ramp up my rabbits, because I can put them in the greenhouse. It's where I want my manure, because I'm doing my layered hotbed. And even though it's expensive to buy feed in the summer, I'm feeding the rabbits off the land. Most of what they eat is just from the garden. It's from tree clippings. So even though in the winter I'm feeding them mostly pellets and hay, I do still have a product that is constantly honing my skills, helping me remember that I'm a farmer, and rabbits are really the only thing I harvest in the winter.
Rabbits are the only thing we breed in the winter here.
Mm-hmm.
We do not breed our rabbits in the summer.
Because the babies would just die, wouldn't they?
That it's just too hot.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't do that.
Yeah.
We tried our breeding program. We try to set it up so that they actually not conceive. They actually give birth in the late fall.
Mm-hmm.
Because
best time for rabbits.
best time. I mean, it's literally not only rabbits, but we like for our sheep to be born in late fall to early winter, because by that time we have so much green grass everywhere from the fields that we've planted ryegrass in,
Yeah.
that when the babies are finished nursing the moms and ready to start eating their grass, the fields are luscious.
Wow.
By March, let's say late February and early March, the ryegrass is probably this deep,
Yeah.
what the deer hadn't eat, and we can turn our animals into that green grass and they just blow and go.
We breed October in November because we want March babies, because the grass is just about to come up.
Wow. See, that's what we're talking to y'all about the difference between the North and the South. There's a vast number of differences in all aspects, I guess you might say. I can't think. I'm sitting here trying, while we're talking, I'm trying to think of one thing
That's consistent.
that would be consistent.
And there's nothing.
I can't think of anything.
No.
Well, you always have those. We have those around us that want to grow GMO stuff.
Yeah. Well, and I think no matter where you are, this is an important work to do. Even if you do have the GMOs, and even if you do have the spraying, like we get crop dusted all summer. Crop dusted, and then they come out and they spray for mosquitoes, and then they go out and they spray with the truck. And so for me, it's about showing people that, like, for instance, we don't have this noxious weed on our property, even though we don't spray. My neighbor sprays everything, and it is gangbusters. It's so happy on his property. The only thing between us is a fence. That fence isn't going to keep those weeds out, but because of the way that we practice our weed control, is that I do it at the right time of the year. I only have to do it once a year. I just go out with a weed whacker and cut it down at the right time of year, and then the other things, the grasses and the clovers, take over, and it can't get a head start. It smothers it out, so it never comes back.
Exactly.
So it's like night and day. His field is yellow, my field is green, and so even though we're fighting through these detrimental things, if we don't do it, there is no other side of the fence. Everybody does this other toxic thing. But if we don't do it, what else are we going to do to protest what's happening and to protect our own health?
Too, and the people who do this do not realize that when they put these toxic chemicals on these plants, they're creating a super plant.
Yeah.
Because plants are like humans. Over the years, our ancestors built resistances to things. And that was so prevalent in the early stages of when America was founded. When the American settlers came in here, the Indians had no immunities to the diseases that they had, and things like smallpox and things like that just wiped them out, literally. Tuberculosis and things like this wiped out mankind, and as far as tribes were concerned. Weeds are no different. Weeds will actually, if you keep putting enough Roundup or whatever it is you're going to, glyphosate, however you want to say it, if you want to keep putting that on your plants will eventually become immune to it. And then what do? You got to go to 2,4-D weed killer or some other type of weed killer, which is even more powerful. Whereas somebody like you is over there doing what we call an organic practice, and you really put nothing. You let nature do it. You may cut it in the beginning of the spring, but you cut it at a key time, which is where what's coming up actually consumes it and smothers it out, then nature does its thing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, so there is a way to do this, y'all, without using chemicals.
Yeah. And it's just practice, observation, patience, timing.
I always say it's because we live in a microwave society. Mm-hmm. We're looking for instant gratification. People are not willing to wait for anything. They want an instant results, and they want it now, so they go to the extreme to make that happen because they don't have the patience to wait for something to actually do it on its own.
Well, and the best part is that when you start to see results, people will notice, and they'll come to you and they'll say, XYZ, my kid has this, I have that, do you have any kind. I know that you're struggling with this too. Do you have a solution? And then you can say, yeah, I've got a solution. The reason I
Right.
don't look like I'm sick, the reason I'm able to do what I'm able to do, is because this is what I do, and this is why I do it. And it becomes an outreach program almost. Your farm becomes this place for people to come and heal and to gain information and hope in a world that they suddenly feel has gone crazy.
Yes.
When it finally hits home and it makes you sick.
Well, that's why Deep South Homestead has become so popular now. Is because, I mean, we have people coming in and out of here on a monthly basis now. Is it that we're great people?
Yes. And yes,
And it's simply because of the way we live.
Yeah.
Now, do we have health issues? Yes. Why do we have health issues? Because we didn't live the way we should have earlier in our life.
Right.
And simple fact, man digresses as he gets older. And when he digresses as he gets older, it is very important that we take care of ourselves. And if we keep dumping chemicals into everything that we eat, we'll never get better. You know, I mean, we will always be stuck in the state in which we're in. But we can overcome some things if we just practice good eating habits.
Yeah.
And understanding our bodies. That's one of the things, we talked about this in our summer videos. We talked about understanding how that the heat affects your bodies. The fall is no different. A lot of people think that just because it's cool, that they can go all day long.
Right.
And that's not possible.
It's at least for us, it's meant to be a time to sit in front of a warm fire and read a good book and work on things that are important and meditate and think. At least for us. For
Yeah.
you, it's probably hard work.
Well, I mean, no, it is a time where we can kick back to some point. But now, I guess the one thing I guess I want to bring out more about the fall is the simple fact, have you noticed the different seasons that we've talked about in all of our chats? What grows in those different seasons? It's what the body needs for your area.
For that, right.
For that
exactly,
season.
yeah.
You know, I mean, here for us, in the fall, there's a lot of greens.
Yeah.
Greens are loaded with vitamin K. They got the vitamin C's. They got the vitamin A's in them, which is exactly what your body needs to deal with cold weather.
Yeah.
And for y'all, whatever's coming in your seasons,
It's all storage.
It's-
It's all root vegetables that we eat with a lot of butter. We have a lot of pork. We eat a lot of meat. We eat a lot of starch in the winter because
so
it's
you're
hard to
needing
keep
you're
warm.
needing starches and fats and
Yeah.
sugars into your system in order to keep you going.
Yeah, to keep warm, to keep going.
Because your cold is so extreme.
Yeah.
Where ours is not as extreme, so we get by with just the greens.
Yeah.
Our vitamin K, which thickens our blood up, which makes us be able to stand the cold that we do get here.
Yeah.
So we can see that, you know, I guess that's one of the things in our videos that should be very important
obvious
and
and-
very obvious is that whatever comes in your season where you live at is what God intended for you to have during that season for your body to be healthy.
Yeah.
Okay, Julie, I've enjoyed this today. I'm not gonna lie.
Me too.
Okay, for y'all, check out our whole series on these videos that we've put up. North versus South, spring, summer, winter, and fall. The differences that we share, the differences that go on in each climate, how our bodies react to different things, what we can do, what we can't do. There's a variety of things that Julie and I talk about on this series. So go check out Dirtpatcheaven and watch her series on the North versus the South. Finish looking at the ones here at Deep South where we talk about North versus the South and the different climates. And watch mine and her chat throughout all of this, because I'm telling y'all what, well, I hope this is going to be appropriate to say.
Uh-oh.
We're not the smartest people in the world, but we're also not the stupidest people
Right?
in the world.
So true.
We are very knowledgeable in our areas of expertise. Julie has an array of knowledge for her area where she's at. I have an array of knowledge for the area in which I'm at. There's a lot that can be learned by beginning homesteaders by watching this series, because it is a lot of good information in it, y'all. It's not that we're super people. It's not that we're scientists or we know everything. It's just that we've experienced a lot of things in our environment and we've learned.
Yeah.
So thank y'all for watching today at Deep South Homestead.